don't think, they don't always tell you the truth. You know, there is nothing in their contract, in fact, that makes it to their advantage always to tell you the truth. So, and these are the people I'm talking about are people that, like, they say they're a member of the committee called, say, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and they have these big meetings where they try to figure out how are we going to continually prove that the planet is getting warmer when that's actually contrary to most people's sensations. I mean, if you actually measure the temperature over a period, I mean, the temperature has been measured now pretty carefully for about 50, 60 years. Longer than that it's been measured, but in really nice, precise ways, and records have been kept for 50 or 60 years. And in fact, the temperature hadn't really gone up. It's like the average temperature has gone up a tiny little bit because the nighttime temperatures at the weather stations have come up just a little bit. But there's a good explanation for that, and that's that the weather stations are all built outside of town where the airport was, and now the town's moved out there, there's concrete all around, and they call it the skyline effect. And most responsible people that measure temperatures realize you have to shield your measuring device from that, and even then, you know, because the buildings get warm in the daytime, they keep it a little warmer at night. So the temperature has been sort of inching up. It should have been, but not a lot. Not like, you know, the first guy that got the idea that we were going to fry ourselves here, actually, he didn't think of it that way. His name was Svante Arrhenius. He was Swedish, and he said if you double the CO2 level in the atmosphere, which he thought, this is 1900, the temperature ought to go up about 5.5 degrees, he calculated. He was thinking of the Earth as kind of like, you know, like a completely ice-insulated thing with no stuff in it, really, just energy coming down, energy leaving. And so he came up with this theory, and he said, this will be cool because it'll be a longer growing season in Sweden, you know, and the surfers liked it. The surfers thought that's a cool idea because it's pretty cold in the ocean sometimes. But a lot of other people later on started thinking it would be bad, you know, but nobody actually demonstrated it, right? I mean, the temperature as measured, and you can find this, but nobody actually demonstrated it, right? I mean, the temperature as measured, and you can find this on our wonderful internet. You just go and look for all the NASA's records and all the Weather Bureau's records, and to look at it yourself, and you'll see the temperature has the nighttime temperature measured on the surface of the planet has gone up a tiny little bit. So if you just average that in the daytime temperature, it looks like it went up about 0.7 degrees in the century, but in fact it was just coming up, it was the nighttime. The daytime temperatures didn't go up. So in Arrhenius's theory and all the global warmers, they would say, yeah, it should go up in the daytime too, if it's the greenhouse effect. Now, people like things that have like names like that, they can envision it, right? I mean, but people don't like things like this. Like I mean, you don't get all excited about things like the actual evidence, you know, which would be evidence for strengthening of the tropical circulation in the 1990s. It's a paper that came out in February. Most of you probably hadn't heard about it. Evidence for large decadal variability in the tropical mean radiative energy budget. Excuse me. Those papers were published by NASA and some scientists at Columbia and Veliky and a whole bunch of people, Princeton. And those two papers came out in Science magazine February the 1st. And the conclusion in both of these papers, and then also the Science editors' like description of these papers for, you know, the quickie, is that our theories about global warming are completely wrong. I mean, what these guys were doing, and it's what this NASA people have been saying this for a long time, they say if you measure the temperature of the atmosphere, it isn't going up. It's not going up at all. We've been doing it very carefully now for 20 years from satellites, and it isn't going up. And in this paper, they showed something much more striking, and that was that they did what they call radiation. I'm not going to go into the details of it, actually. It's quite complicated, but it isn't as complicated as they might make you think it is by the words they use in those papers. If you really get down to it, they say, the sun puts out a certain amount of energy. We know how much that is. It falls on the Earth gives back a certain amount. When it gets warm, it makes redder energy, like infrared, like something that's warm gives off infrared. The whole business of the